We have in the studio two economists in person of Dr. Terfa Abraham and Dr. Obinnaya Uruakpa to discuss the cost of living and soaring prices of gas and other commodities. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. Perhaps, Doctor, I should start with you because, I mean, you're not looking like this subsidy and this whole jamboree is having any effect on you. But for me, I'm not happy that the price of gas keeps rising. Like I said, the last 3 instances that I went to refill my gas cylinder, I met the price higher than it was previously. What's the situation? Why are we experiencing all of this? And when do we finally be able to breathe?
Nothing just happens. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. You see, sometimes when we come and discuss these things, you know, the wristwatch you have on your hands, you do not need a mirror to look at it.
Even though I don't have one anyways.
No problem. Even if you had a bangle, it's a proverb. I just gave you a proverb.
Of course.
You know, some things are too obvious. Okay? What are we dealing with here? 63 years of what? You have refineries that are not functional. God has endowed Nigeria with fossil fuels, but you keep flaring the gas. So the gas they are buying expensively is out there in the air, frittered away. Then we also moved a step further by starting up the LNG. But the LNG gas is bought in futures, and those who have placed order for it have already paid upfront. So much of it actually goes out. It's not serving the local market. Who should benefit Nigeria? Now you say that by December, the Port Harcourt refinery will come on stream. I hear it has also been shifted. Then we also talk about the Dangote refinery, which incidentally should be a private enterprise. But since we can't handle our own thing, somebody's helping us. That one too, we're not very sure of 2025. And then what happens is double jeopardy. You take your cheap crude and send abroad, and you buy expensive refined PMS. And then you had 1 month to plan. The former government provided for subsidy up to June. We woke up on May 29, and a speech was read, and we said subsidy is gone. What happened to the 1 month that could have been used to sit with labor, sit with all the stakeholders, and then agree this is the way to go before you come out with a Marshall Plan on it? Is that not how things are done? When preparation meets opportunity, success is achieved. Did we prepare? And the opportunities are all there. A country of 220 million people. Are you saying we cannot create wealth for ourselves? Now, you've done environmental analysis and looked at the environmental impact of us cutting down the trees. And you said we should go into gas usage because it was affordable then. Now, people have moved over there. What is simply happening is the law of economics. When demand outweighs supply, price will go up. And simple thing we would have done is just 3 things you could have done, which I've repeated on this platform severally. Stakeholders mapping. It's like you want to marry this year. What you do is stakeholders mapping. There are 10 ladies, one of them is possibly going to be my wife. Or there are 10 gentlemen, they are coming for my hand in marriage. I keep watching for certain qualities to choose which one. The next one is stakeholders engagement. Have we held town hall meetings? Have we sat down? Labour said for over 6 weeks, nobody spoke to them. And they consistently threatened strike. Next Tuesday, they are threatening another strike next Tuesday. They blocked the airport yesterday. Stakeholders engagement could have prevented us from, so those who bought tickets at 100,000 one way, 100,000 return, couldn't fly yesterday, and maybe they had appointments that would have fetched them millions of naira. Who pays for that? Next one is stakeholders management. After you have married that girl, after engaging her, you've married her, you have to deal with in-laws. Who are the in-laws? The in-laws are the stakeholders that identified first. And who are the in-laws in this matter? Who are the gas producers? Yeah? Who are the gas users? What is the logistics of moving the gas from Port Harcourt or from Bonny to Kano, the report you just said? And who are the users? The average Meshai, which I've heard in our offline discussions, the average Meshai has transited from charcoal. We used to have kerosene issues. Now we don't even know where kerosene is. These are cheap energy sources that the average person who does not live beyond $1 a day, which is 1,350, that's another crisis on its own. You mentioned it in your opening statements. Now the person is just managing to get by, and then you come and saddle this person with this gas, which was like a place of escape. And then is this person going to go back to charcoal? And if they go back to charcoal, what happens to the effect on the environment? If you look at internationally, there is what we call carbon credits. And people have been encouraged to plant trees and earn $20 per tree. Maybe plant coconut, plant this avocado pea and so on, things they can also consume. And then you said they should not cut down the tree, and you give them these 1 kg cylinder gases. And then you cannot provide the content in it. What is the challenge? I don't want to say who is pulling who.
Indeed, there's a lot happening on that one. Yes.
What is the challenge?
Dr. Terfa, question on what at this point, earlier, I think last month, we saw marketers of gas coming out to predict that there was going to be an increase in the prices. And if we take it as though that was a warning to the government, to the federal government to do something, but then still this thing is happening right now. So as an economist, what are the factors, guarding this, making these things to increase at this rate, and how bad is this going to be, on the daily life of Nigerians that are already having a bad, living condition?
Okay, thank you again, and thank you for having me. Generally, the concept of cost of living is the inability or the difficulty we experience in paying for food, clothing, housing, transportation. So it's a basket of daily necessities that every human being should be able to afford. Clothing, house, food, shelter, transportation, these basic things. So the idea of cost of living is that the amount of money paid to access these things is becoming so expensive that we are no longer able to afford these basic necessities of life. Now, the food component is where the issue of gas comes in. Food is not just what we eat, it's also what we drink, and then the food has to be processed, and the energy to process food is charcoal, is kerosene, is gas, is microwave, is everything. For a long period of time, gas became one of the cheapest, but now the price of gas is going up. And it's going up because there's a rush for gas, and the supply, and there's hiccups in the supply side. And gas, the umpire for gas is Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas, in partnership with Nigerian NNPC with the L. So the partner, whatever is produced by liquefied natural gas, NNPC also buys nearly 60% of it, and then the other percentage goes to the market. Now, but it doesn't go to the market directly to consumers. There's a gas supply value chain. It goes to somebody who buys and ends up with the terminal. The cost incurred by at every point of the supply chain is transferred to the consumer, which is why we are all seeing the increase in price. So once there's distortion in exchange rate, to be passed to the consumer. Once there's increase in inflation, that cost will be factored and channeled to the consumer. Now, the concept is that in a market-driven economy, consumers will always bear the brunt of increase in prices, including taxes. So what needs to be done is government regulation to ensure that price increments are not artificial, and to also ensure that whatever government needs to do to ensure that the basic necessities of life, which include food and cooking gas, and not just cooking gas, everything, just food in general, is being affordable to Nigerians in a way that it does not erode their basic human right or their ability to live as human beings. So generally, the reason why this price is increasing is because of the market-driven economy in which gas operates, in which the people in the gas value chain operate. But remember, the function of government is to regulate the economy, to protect the life of people, properties of people as well. Now, food is important for people to survive. So when the cost of food is going up, it's important for government to intervene. Remember that inflation already is about 26.7%. Food component in that inflation is almost 22%. So it tells you that it is the cost of food that is driving our inflation. And if you do a regression analysis backward, you realize that it's not just coming from exchange rate and inflation, but also the inability of farmers to supply food, and businesses to also afford food. In other words, for firms to afford that link from agriculture to agriculture and manufacturers. All these links have been distorted. So the market right now for gas is consumers, and everybody is now channeling the gas supply they have to terminals, and these terminals too, which is the regular places will go to buy gas. They also have their own costs that they incur. The cost of the land they pay, the cost of staffing, the cost of preserving security, everything, safety, everything is just transferred to the consumer. So what we have is a situation where the cost of living is increasing in Nigeria and the poor is left to deal with it directly.
You know, talking about the poor is left to deal with it. There was a video circulating of the president, Ahmed Tinubu, making, you know, pinpointing, bringing out the points of what is happening in Nigeria and how Nigerians, he knows that they are facing this hardship. But then he said at the end of the remark, but there is nothing we can do. So the federal government is looking at a long-term solution. Meanwhile, at that period, in this period, Nigerians are suffering. So, Dr. Uruakpa, what do you think? How can Nigerians cope before the federal government are able to make, you know, their plans come to life?
I've not seen the video you talked about, but if that sentence actually appeared there, then something is wrong.
What he's promising was, I need a period to bring.
I understand short, medium, and long term. Well, let's come to, you're married, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm married, I have a family. There are certain things you don't tell stories to your family. And that's what Labour keeps saying. There are certain places. See, hunger, a hungry man is an angry man. And let me also support the president. A retreat was held in the villa last week. You monitored it. What did he say? I listened to his speech. I watched his speech. You know what he told them? That everybody must play their roles or they will leave his government. Is that what he said? You must perform. Okay, so break it down. Can we break down that statement? You must play your role. The Ministry of Education has not less than 22 parastatals under it. The Ministry of Agriculture has more than 16 or more research institutes. CFO protocols. Right from Professor Guje and the rest of them. You know the issues around it. As a lady, can you get CFO for land ownership? And if you don't have land, how do you farm? And when you finish farming, how do you find markets for what you have found? As I was driving to this place, they talked about Gwari, where 5 infants died after a ransom of 90 million had already been paid. If there's insecurity, like he said, how do the farmers get in, plant, and not have to pay kidnappers and bandits to harvest and bring to you? Next one is road infrastructure, which he was talking about. If not, all of these things will come on the table of the final consumer in a market-driven economy. And is it not avoidable? As I was driving, I was asking myself, the president, before he left for India for the G20 summit, called a meeting of the service chiefs. What did he tell them? He said, deal with this matter. To the extent that nobody does what the president says, what should be the sanction? To every right, there's a corresponding obligation. It's carrot and stick. The sword of Damocles should drop. And I'm being very blunt. The Yorubas will tell you, when 2 siblings or more go into a room and come out smiling, they have lied to each other. We cannot be dealing with this insecurity for several years. It's affecting things. Even if you set up a terminal, like he said, you need to provide security. Kidnapping is happening as close as Kabuza here, and even in the city center. Your car cannot break down at Wonderland by City Gate and you're safe. You get attacked by people who are hanging out. The hunger level is so high that people are now kidnapping, people are collecting as simple as recharge cards. And we've seen this happen before. Is it not avoidable? What are the commissioners of police doing? Or is it only when it is election? Ballot boxes get to a rural area that a NEPA bill will get to a rural area that food cannot come out of. Are we communicating here? These are basic things. And it's a coagulation of many factors. Insecurity, poor policy making, monetary policy issues coming out of central bank, fiscal issues coming out of the Federal Ministry of Finance. By the time you put a single window and dollar arrived at from 420 to 750, now we're at 1,350. I thought we had a promise that you could access the foreign exchange. And without foreign exchange, the inputs to produce gas, even if you say it's coming from LNG, most of these things are imported, including what you're wearing, including toothpick. Yeah, the people in the CTG, cotton, textile, and garment in the sector, I had a meeting I had an opportunity of anchoring a strategy session they had with the former Minister for Trade and Investment in State, Aisha Abubakar. And we sat down, and they said they needed gas, and NNPC people were in the room, connecting them, the gineries that will collect the cotton, turn the cotton to what you're wearing. And as long as we don't get that right, then all of these things will come from China. Now you have an Africa of 1.3 billion people, and China has over 3 million human beings here. So it has become China's, go and look for the article, China's second continent. And what happens is that they have 1.4 billion people to feed in China, 1.4 billion to feed in India, and they're looking for markets. And Africa becomes the dumping ground. And under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, how do you want to compete with 54 or 53 other countries? And they don't dump on you. And what is the way forward? I just came back from Ghana. I mentioned it here some time ago. And while I was in Ghana, Ghana borrowed $3 billion from IMF. Who borrows from IMF? If not for Konje that pulled us out of our own, who borrows from IMF and will not pay 10 times back? What's wrong with African countries, for God's sake? Now, while I was there, Ghana became #1 again on gold production. Who are they selling to? So you can't sell your gold, and then our president is chairman of ECOWAS. While I was in Ghana, I found out that including Irish potatoes, it's imported. So post-COVID, Ghana is hitting the recession. With over 30 million people, with over 2 million Nigerians in Ghana. I'm going to go back there to go and train them. And I was at the High Commissioner's office, His Excellency Terfa, former Chief of Naval Staff. I said, Obinnaya, there's a crisis here. He may probably be watching. And if there's Irish potatoes in Bokos, go and look for that document. I keep repeating it like a broken record. One local government, one product, OLOP document. That Duke Adelaja went to Japan to go and investigate. Every prefecture, every local government area in Japan has at least one commodity she has comparative advantage on. But we are sitting down looking for 160 million SUVs to buy. Instead of putting it together, that's over how many billions? If you put it together and you created the infrastructure from Bokos, and you got the IG of police, who was the ADC to the present president, while he was governor of Lagos State, and say, IG, provide security for 100 trailers, 911 trailers, to move from Bokos in Plateau State, and start moving and cross the borders from Benin to Togo, and arrive in Ghana, and tell the Ghanaian president that we have brought your Irish potatoes from you. Rather than borrowing from IMF, collect the Irish potatoes and remit as money falls due as you sell your gold. Am I communicating? So, what is the common sense is not common. Can African countries tell themselves the truth? Go to Rwanda and see they've done visa free. I was in Rwanda on May 23.
I think same with Kenya.
And then when I got to Burundi, I told His Excellency Elijah Onyagba, and the last thing he did before he stepped down on October 31, which is also another point. At what point do you wake up and you ask every ambassador or high commissioner to return? There are career ambassadors and are political appointees. Some people, I was supposed to be a diplomat. I read international law and diplomacy. If I had joined that career service after going to Foreign Service Academy, my dream would be to end up as an ambassador. So I finally become an ambassador of my 30th year, having 5 years to retire. And then you wake up because you won an election and ask all of us to come back. You can see the coagulation of all these things. And these ambassadors must have engaged people like him, business people like you, and they are working on a couple of things. The ambassador in Zambia, I had a meeting with him. He's from Ebo. He said, I'm calling names so that I can verify. I had a meeting with him. He said that under the Anchor Borrowers program that we introduced under Aduobe, he had said that if banditry is disturbing us here, let us take some farmers from here, that their land in Zambia is very fertile. When I got to Burundi, I saw Lake Tanganyika, 760 kilometers long and over 70 kilometers wide. Over 9 countries are bordering Lake Tanganyika. The fish there has the head as big as this. And the Uganda is called the food basket of Nigeria. From Burundi, I entered Uganda for a summit. And I'm seeing these opportunities. If Nigeria had taken the farmers and listened to that ambassador in Zambia, I'm calling his name, and gone to Zambia, you can produce in Zambia and bring back here. Nigeria ended up being about number 34, 36 that signed the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and we lost the headquarters and he went to Ghana, managed by a South African heading it.
Doctor.
Doctor is getting emotional.
Doctor has said so much, Dr. Obinnaya. Dr. Terfa, what is the way out for us? I remember, I think it was the NNPCL, GMD that said Nigeria is a gas country.
All right. Okay, Doctor, there's a lot, just like Sager was saying, about the solution. The problem is we keep making the same thing. It's like going around in circle. And just like Dr. Uruakpa mentioned, that at this point, there's a motion to it of saying the government knows what to do, but they are not doing it. So what is the solution at this point?
Okay, the solution is for the government to engage stakeholders in the gas value chain. And not just gas, like I said, cost of living is a basket. There's housing inside, there's transportation inside, there's education inside, there's out of health pocket expenditure for health. There's many things inside. Access to clean water. So, and then there's also access to energy, clean and affordable energy, for which gas is part of it. Cooking gas, PMS, coal, kerosene, everything. Government needs to hold a stakeholder meeting with the people in this value chain. But since our focus is on gas, people in the gas value chain. But the stakeholder engagement is not to rush and tell them we're giving you subsidy. Is to engage them so that they will tell you, that's the you now is government, this is the business we are into and this is the challenges we face. For example, when we're importing this component for this, we get taxes at the port of this amount. Government can help them to reduce. When we are transporting from one place to the other, we pay tax on every entry point. This whole issue of multiple taxation, government should help them address it. Government should just help them address all those factors that make them incur more cost and then transfer to the consumer. So it should not be a stakeholder engagement for subsidy, but rather it should be a stakeholder engagement to address challenges that will enable them function smoothly. Otherwise, we'll keep transferring costs to the consumer. Then also, the regulatory function of government must be done very fiercely to ensure that even people at the terminal and the big players between Nigerian liquefied natural gas and the final consumers, nobody is using artificial price to take advantage of the other person. And one way to do that is to use electronic means of monitoring the entire process, payment process, clearing process. This is also vital. Then ultimately, cost of living feeds into inflation. And like I said earlier, the food component of inflation is very, very high. You know, it's one thing. It's good to be fair to government when analyzing. Under Emefiele, his thinking was that central bank can choose to focus on price stability, or central bank can play a development role. Emefiele, as a governor of central bank, played central bank as a development agent. But the mistake he made was replicating every function of almost every ministry in the central bank. So that role that the segment started under Emefiele distracted central bank, but the intervention in itself was not wrong. Rather, they should just make sure that the Anchors Borrowers Program and all those 100 for 100 policy, all those policies meant to help small and medium scale businesses, farmers, rice production, everything, should go back to the Ministry of Agriculture. Every intervention from the fiscal or monetary policy side should not be done by that apex bank. It should be done through the ministry that is responsible for that policy. And the idea is that if you help farmers overcome their challenge, help maize producers, you'll be reducing the food component of inflation, thereby reducing overall inflation. That's the Emefiele's thinking. But like I said, even though it went the way it went, it's important for government to support ministries, departments, and agencies to play their role in intervening in the economy. Because when you talk about transport, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Transport is responsible for the transport sector in Nigeria. The Ministry of Agriculture is responsible for the agricultural sector in Nigeria. Public policy comes through these people, and they are the ones through their department and agencies all over the 36 state FCT and the 774 local government. They have agents there. They have outlets that can reach out to the last farmer, even the small, whether a smallholder women farmer or a farmer as far as the border of Borno or Lagos. So it's important for these strategies to continue. So to zoom in on the gas issue, cooking gas is something that the demand is on even as we speak. But the supply is facing some challenges. Stakeholder engagement to address the factors, that the constraints that these suppliers face will be very, very vital.
But then again, Dr. Obinnaya, will this stakeholders engagement be enough? Because I was going to say earlier that I think it was the Group Managing Director of the NNPCL that stated that Nigeria is a gas country with an oil-based economy. So if we have, as at the last time I checked, 102 trillion cubic feet of natural gas sitting underneath us somewhere, why should we have challenge with supply?
If we tell ourselves the truth, we will not have challenge with supply.
So we'll be lying to each other.
Yeah, we have been lying to each other. He mentioned Emefiele. My company consults for central bank. The question you need to ask is, the person that a snake has ever beaten before. When he sees the head of a lizard, he runs.
Doctor has dropped another one.
Why was Emefiele doing intervention programs when you had the Ministry of Agric? Someone should go and be the ombudsman to investigate the Ministry of Agriculture in Nigeria. Why did, when Akinwumi Adesina, when Akinwumi was minister, why did Agric work? John Maxwell's leadership is influence. He did the e-wallet system. I was one of the 800 persons that were invited to serve in the Youth Employment and Agriculture Program. I was on air like this, and I was invited by Dr. Redibe, who works in the World Bank. I'm calling names. And Akinwumi, we all sat in Transcorp, and we discussed the Youth Employment and Agriculture Program. The plan was to have basketball courts, table tennis courts, make this agriculture sexy for young people. Pardon my use of words, that was what he said. Attractive to them. So that when they're playing their basketball, and then Rauf Arebeshola Obeni replicated it in OES program in Osun State. I had a one-on-one meeting with him when he became the Minister for Interior. And what was the discussion? For the past 10 to 12 years, my team and I have worked with the correctional services, then Nigerian Prison Service. We go to Sokoto Guest Inn, come back to Hamdallah Hotel, come on. What are we saying? You have prisoners that have locked in. If they produce, even if it's bioenergy, the level of defecation that happens in the prison can give you energy. Go to South Africa, it's there. Brick making you see at the back of the DSTV magazine is made by prisoners there. So we know what to do. The simple thing is that we're simply not doing it. The NNPC man, and I will address him directly, should tell us the truth. I stand to be corrected. What has happened to the turnaround maintenance of Kaduna, Warri, Port Harcourt, and all the refineries? Why come that several years after we don't have any refinery that is working? I was in Warri, and I saw on my left a big gigantic thing that is run down. Why haven't we talked about modular refineries rather than what is going on in the Niger Delta? If these guys are doing bunkering, call them to stakeholders meeting. During the Civil War, what were they doing? They were refining fuel and funding. Why can't we learn from that? We have a research institute in Broda, Enugu. We have IITA, but we have different research institutes. If you walked with the town, it's called the wig, the gown, and the town. You have your PhD in the University of Lagos, but you engage Oniwaya or Iyaba, engage the town. That's what Mohammedinus did in Bangladesh. A professor of economics, go and read the book, Banker to the Poor. And that's the origin of microfinance, 1973. You get what I'm saying? So let's stop deceiving ourselves. We're not stupid. Abiola said if you spend 20 years learning how to be mad, how many years will you use to practice it? We've been on this same matter, even before you were born. 5-year rolling plan, Green Revolution, and all of that. We are very good in raising documents and glossy documents, but implementation is key. I worked closely with Akinwumi Adesina, and please, he's alive. He's in the Africa Development Bank. Africa Development Bank has tried to help us severally. One of the first things he did was to give us a loan. Where is it? What did Bill Gates say? When Bill Gates came here, what did he say? That he has they've pumped in so much money into this country. They're wondering whether, if it had impact, would we still be having issues about, go to Benue statistics, go to Cross River statistics, and a few other statistics about HIV and all of those issues. Sure, you talked about baskets. Put all of these things together. Transport. Go and read How Europe Underdeveloped West Africa. You know that one? Okay. Go and read a certain document about what happened from the 1960s thereabout, about the train structure in Nigeria from Kara Namoda down to Jos. You pick the tin, and you go to Southwest. That's where you have the Dua Group, and you go to Lagos and you ship it, and you ship the cocoa, and it comes back as Ovaltine. We're still there. And you go from Meduguri, you come back through Alede and pick that, and pick the farm produce in Enugu and Umuahia, and you ship it to Port Harcourt, and it comes back as soap. That is palm oil. For more than 10 years, Nigeria has had over 600,000 metric tons deficit of palm oil. If you need to set up a soap making company, now you may not see palm oil. But there are fast-growing varieties that you can plant that in 2-3 years you can start harvesting very short like this. Malaysia took our palm kernel. And today, as you're landing in Kuala Lumpur, you see different levels of palm trees, including this table. A research has been done that you can even grow seedlings on this table. What have we done? So what are we talking about? So when that statement was made by the president, no, it's not. I run a family. This year I sold my own car because I'm asking myself, what am I parking these cars here doing? So that rats and rodents will be inside. I sold it and went and got a land in Zuba, fruit and vegetable market. collect plantain from Sabongidora and offload it there. Even if you bring 100 J5 of plantain to this Zuba fruit and vegetable market, it's selling one day. Before 12 o'clock, it's sold. Collect the palm oil from our back and from, what's that other place in Cross River? Take the crayfish from there. My younger brother is a PhD anatomy lecturer at University of Calabar. I'm calling his name. Asu went on strike for 8 months. Hunger nearly finished him. The wife was feeding them. But now, moving crayfish and palm oil, do we need to go have a PhD to move palm oil from our back and pay Aquabom transport to deliver it in Otako here, close to your office? What are we talking about here? If people individually, how are you surviving? They move fuel from, you don't try it in UK. You move fuel from 197 naira per liter to 540 to 640. Try moving bread by 1 cent in UK and see the riot that will happen. Nigerians are very elastic. We're very, very patient people. So no minister, no head of MDA. The president is commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The buck stops on his table. If he makes a statement, even if it's a mistake he made on May 29, his lieutenants should get into a room. We just finished NESG summit 23rd and 24th. I was there in Transcorp. And the CBN governor, Cardoso, walked in as Wale Edu, the minister was sitting on stage. He called him, come and sit here. And we're talking about Forex. And as micro, small, and medium enterprises, as players in the private sector, we were asking him at the NESG summit. I sat down there face-to-face live. Okay, can we access Forex to be able to take the cassava and turn it to pellets and export it? People are looking for cassava abroad, but to move it to cross Apapa, like he said, Wahala, from Ushibanjo using helicopter to land at Apapa port. You cannot access Apapa port. It's faster to move from port, if you have gotten there, to China, than to move from Apapa port into Abuja. Who does that?
There seems to be a lot, to be discussed. But quickly, because of time constraints, Dr. Terfa, quickly, talking about this production, which is one key thing that everyone keeps pushing. Why do you think the governments are not, taking advantage of it, coming back to what we used to do, the cotton, the wrappers, even the palm, kind of sugarcane and all that? Why are the government not working on that? There's different plans, but not plans on production.
Because government's ability to invest has weakened over time. Revenue has dwindled. If you look at the entire idea behind the National Development Plan that started for 2021 to end in 2025, it was anchored on 341 trillion naira plan. Private sector is expected to bring about 84–86% of that money. So that tells you alone that imagine a plan, a medium-term plan that seeks to revamp the Nigerian economy that is pegged at 341 trillion naira. They expect that private sector will bring up more than 84%. The public sector is telling you clearly that we don't have that money. And that the difference, that 16% or thereabout that the government is to bring, if you split it into 5 years, it will be about 7 trillion every year, which is the exact size of our capital budget for the federal government alone. But at the end of every budget cycle, the level of implementation of a capital budget is less than 13 or 15%. So the government does not have that capacity to attract that investment to revamp the production that we need. So the idea is now to attract private sector. But the fundamentals of our Nigerian economy is not looking as if it will make investors to come. The ones we have are already trying to leave, looking for new headquarters within the West African region. So, but we cannot give up. We must continue to make the Nigerian economy attractive. And this making Nigerian economy attractive is simple. Make it possible for people to feel safe at home. Make it possible for people to feel safe, to work at night. Make it possible for people to have access to water, stable electricity, drive inflation downward, protect lives and property, end all these kidnappings and killing. Say no to corruption, end it immediately, end public waste, engage in stakeholder consultation so that you'll be aware what is happening. Don't treat labor anyhow. Don't harass leaders. These things drive investors. It turns away money. Who wants to invest in a state where during election everything closed down? How will you recoup that profit? And this is the money you need to invest in this gas. Already government has cried out that they don't have through the Nigeria National Development Plan. Now, private sector, they are looking for where to come to, but you are not making it possible. Look at development in many rural areas. It was done by people from those places. Some people provide their own water themselves, their own security themselves. These people can also invest in gas. But you are not even making the market free, the investment market free for them. In basic economics, we say allow a free market economy should promote free entry and free exit. But you allow too much monopoly to the extent that even Dangote and Boa Group are even clashing. Just two people that we can say is duopoly, but it's still not possible. Allow people with capital to invest. If you are doing Anchor's Brewers program, don't introduce religion and state and ethnicity into it. Allow the market to be driven by people with positive interest. That is why this is what we need to do. Make the domestic economy attractive so that people with money, even here in Nigeria, should invest in this business and not looking for another country to take their money to.
So two key takeaways: make the Nigerian economy attractive, and for Dr. Obinnaya, make the agricultural sector attractive for younger Nigerians. Gentlemen, thank you so much for talking.
Just be a minute to tie this up.
Okay.
I'll give you information.
As shortly
1
as
minute.
possible,
Yes. Next week from 13 to 15, the Nigerian Diaspora Investment Summit is going to happen. We've had over $24 billion remittances from diaspora. 25. So they're going to meet. They have a chance to make hay while the sun shines. Just listening to the doctor. Let them come there and give them confidence to repatriate. So if you notice, we're having Chinese, Lebanese, and Indians. These are multinationals of the South coming into here. And we have people from some other climes living. That can be avoided. So if Nigerians can live in Nigeria, we can't run away from Nigeria. Encourage them to come and invest in modular refineries and so on. There are two ways you make money. I'll be speaking at the Nigerian Diaspora Investment Summit, and I'll be preaching that everybody should go and empower their own communities, commerce and economics teachers. Let them teach entrepreneurship to the young generation. Let them believe and invest in their own place. So finally, there are two ways you make money. Either you increase the volume of production, or you reduce your cost of production. It's about operations management. If this government really wants to make a mark, unfortunately, the past governments have been borrowing to fund budgets. You do a budget of 21 trillion then, and then only 7 trillion is expected income. The other ones you have to borrow. This government should reduce the propensity to borrow. If you must borrow, let it be borrowing to go into structures and you monitor and track the money. And civil society organizations, media like you, should not leave it for government. If you don't stay close to the fire, your young will never rise quickly. They will eat this money.
Dr. Obinnaya, thank you so much for your contributions. Dr. Terfa, thank you so much for your contributions and speaking so passionately.